Revealed. An amazing bargain with the wolf. How one heartfelt plea changed everything forever. In the heart of a Midwest town drowning in despair, hope flickered like the dying glow of an ember. David, a 38-year-old mechanic, labored in the local garage while juggling the energetic whims of his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Each day he watched as the nearby factory, the town's lifeblood, teetered on the edge of closure. It was a fading reminder of sunny block parties, backyard barbecues, and laughter echoing down the streets. Now the air was thick with unease, and optimism once so abundant was as rare as a clear sky in endless gray. But then came the wolf, a shadowy figure who promised quick cash for the very land where dreams had once flourished. The townsfolk whispered about him. Were his intentions genuine? David's mind raced with possibilities. If he could gather enough support from the weary neighbors, maybe just maybe they could weather this storm together. The thought ignited a spark in him, the kind you feel deep in your chest. Together, he shouted one chilly evening, standing before the community center, the dim lights illuminating his face. We can't let fear tear us apart. We owe it to our families, our children. This town is ours. Tears pricked his eyes as he spoke, his heart racing. The crowd shifted, murmurs buzzing like bees in a hive. While some nodded, a slew of skepticism cut through like a knife, silencing the buzz. David's own father sat among them, a reclusive war veteran now trapped in shadows of his past. Their relationship strained by unspoken grievances, filled with regret. David yearned to mend the fabric of family, but found himself hung up, caught in the whirlpool of doubt from years of bitterness. The irony was stark. They were both drowning. Just then the ground shook beneath them. Rushing waters arrived, chaotic and relentless, transforming their streets into rivers. Families who had already faced too much now found themselves displaced as walls crumbled. David's heart sank. But in the chaos, old rivalries softened. He waded through muddy water beside a neighbor he hadn't spoken to in years, a man he'd fought with over his lawn's color, no less. Together they pulled children from the grasp of rising tides, their muscles straining but their spirits ignited by a singular goal. Survival. As the floodwaters rose, a clash erupted. His father's thunderous voice grew louder as old grudges resurfaced. Confrontations ensued, emotions boiled over, and unaddressed pain danced in the air. Yet in those turbulent moments, David realized the true enemy wasn't the wolf or the loss of their livelihood, it was the division within their hearts. The walls they built themselves. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As dawn broke over the remnants of their town, it felt bittersweet. The waters receded, leaving debris and memories in their wake. But there, amidst the wreckage, a glimmer of hope persisted. David looked around at his neighbors, battered yet resolute. They stood united against the storm, ready to confront whatever came next. With a deep breath, David approached them, heart pounding, knowing that the most significant battle was just beginning. Would they choose to unite or remain divided? Would they face the wolf's allure or reclaim their community? As he stepped forward, the weight of uncertainty pressed on him. The truth about the wolf loomed large, and David wondered, was redemption truly just a heartbeat away? David stood in the middle of the street, debris scattered around like the pieces of their collective lives. The sun crept higher, shining a reluctant light on the devastation. People were beginning to clear away the remnants of their homes, the air filled with the scent of mud and something more poignant, resilience. Lily tugged at his sleeve, her small hand clutching a soggy stuffed bear, her face smeared with dirt. "Daddy, will we be okay?" The innocence in her voice pierced through the fog of uncertainty that enveloped him. He knelt down, meeting her gaze, and forced a smile, his mind racing through possibilities he couldn't yet articulate. "We'll be just fine, kiddo. Together, right? Together." The word had taken on a new meaning since the flood swept through their lives. Together meant sharing burdens, fear, and hope. It reminded him of the neighbors he'd once quarreled with, now side by side as they salvaged what they could from the wreckage. As David scanned the scene, he caught sight of his father, moving slowly on the opposite side of the street. The old man wore a weary expression, but there was determination in his step. David's heart swelled with both anger and longing. Could they finally bridge the chasm between them? Could this disaster somehow pave the way for healing? David felt the answer linger just out of reach. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," a voice called, pulling David out of his thoughts. It was Sarah, a young mother whose house had been nearly swept away. Her children, wide-eyed but steady, were helping each other gather up their belongings. "Do you have any tools? We need to board up what's left." "Sure," David replied, springing into action. He sprinted to grab his toolbox. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of his self-worth, a small victory for them all. As he returned, he noticed the range of emotions around him: grief, determination, and even laughter as kids played in puddles of shimmering water. It was messy, chaotic, and beautiful in its own way. His neighbors were transforming their heartbreak into something tangible. "Hey, David." It was Mike, the neighbor he had fought over yards and weather. "You got any spare wood? I think I can fix the Smith's roof until they get the funds they need." Together again. How striking it was that a flood could wash away animosities, leaving behind a certain clarity. David nodded, feeling the knots of resentment loosening. "Let us check what we've got at the garage." They moved forward as a solid front, laughter mixing with sweat and shared stories. But all the while, David's thoughts spiraled back to the wolf and the offer hanging in the air like a poisonous cloud. It was a tempting escape from the agonizing task of rebuilding their lives. What did it really mean to draw a line between survival and compromise, between despair and hope? As evening approached, David gathered everyone in the town square. They looked weary but defiant under the fading light. "I know we've just gone through something terrible," he began, "but we have a chance to rebuild our community stronger than ever. We're all we have." His words hung over the crowd, heavy with unspoken doubts. "And what about that wolf?" someone shouted from the back. "What if he offers us the quick fix we need? This could be our lifeline." The air thickened. David's heart raced. He faced the crowd, knowing this moment could change everything, yet uncertainty clawed at him, whispering fears of trust and betrayal. Should they risk everything for a chance to rise quickly? Or what if staying united meant taking a longer, harder path to true recovery? The silence was palpable, and David could feel the stakes rising around him. A choice loomed large before them. Would they stand together? Or would this be the fracture that finally rend them apart? Just then, a distant howl echoed from the edge of town, deceptive and haunting. Who was it? Who would heed the call? The howl echoed again, slicing through the tension in the air like a knife. David felt a chill crawl up his spine. It wasn't just a sound. It was a reminder of everything they had been fighting against. His neighbors began to murmur, each person glancing at the darkening horizon, their faces flickering with unease. "Maybe it was just the wind," someone said half-heartedly, trying to lighten the mood, but the look on David's face warned otherwise. "The wolf is back," he murmured under his breath, dread gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. He stepped forward, heart pounding. "Listen, everyone, I know the wolf's reputation. He offers quick fixes, flashes of hope wrapped in dark promises." The crowd grew silent, eyes locked on him, eager for something to anchor their fear. David took a breath, grounding himself. "But that's just it, isn't it? What kind of hope comes from something stolen, something that could tear apart what we're trying to rebuild?" The murmurs grew louder, more frantic. Some heads nodded, but others displayed the thirst for relief that lingered in their eyes, fear blurring the lines of morality. David's gaze flickered to Lily, clutching her bear tighter as though it were a shield against the chaos. "Mommy always said when you take the easy way, you often lose the things worth fighting for," she whispered, her innocent words slicing through the noise. David swallowed hard. She didn't know the true weight of their situation, yet her wisdom shone brighter than ever. One voice rose from the commotion. "What if he's all we've got left? If we keep waiting, we might lose everything." The crowd began to divide, the hungry ones on one side, desperate for a way out, and those clinging to their values on the other. He felt that familiar bitterness rise within him. These were the moments he had once dreaded, the moments when he chose an anger over connection, pride over vulnerability. But today here he saw their suffering like a flickering light begging for a chance not just to survive, but to thrive. "Just remember," he continued, striving to make a connection. What we build together through this disaster makes us stronger. Can we really trust our future to someone like the wolf? What will he take in return? His question hung in the air, a question wrapped in shadow and weight. A few neighbors exchanged glances, fighting a silent battle within. We can be stronger, David pressed, desperation fueling his voice. Together we can face this. We've already faced so much. And that, my friends, is worth so much more than his poison-laden promises. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, David continued to speak, feeling hope surge within him. Let us come together. Let us build a community where trust is not only a word, but a strength. With every word he could see the faces around him transforming. The fear began to morph into determination, and for the first time, David felt a sense of unity amongst the chaos. Perhaps they could fight back together, reclaiming what had been taken from them. But just then, as David finished his plea, a figure appeared on the edge of town, a dark silhouette, unmistakable. The wolf stood watching them. An unsettling smile stretched across his lips. He waved slowly, a mocking salute, and as David's breath caught in his throat, the realization hit him hard. It wasn't he just a figure standing at the edge. It was an invitation, a challenge. What would he decide? Would they stand strong against the wolf? Or would his presence beckon their innate desire for an easy solution? David's heart raced, a tumult of emotions playing against one another. Remember, everything comes at a cost, folks, he muttered under his breath, not quite believing his own words. The line between hope and despair had never been more blurred. With the wolf looming, David knew the choice they faced wasn't just about rebuilding. It was about fighting for the very essence of who they were. And as he watched the crowd stir, he realized this battle was only beginning. How far were they willing to go to protect their future? The wolf's presence electrified the silent crowd. His dark eyes sparkled with cunning as he stepped closer, the tension escalating like an impending storm. David's heart raced, each beat thrumming in his ears. He could almost taste the fear in the crisp evening air. Lily tugged at his sleeve, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Daddy, is he scary?" The question felt like a dagger, echoing the very fears David sought to quell. He knelt beside her, forcing a smile, though it felt like a mask. "No, sweetie. Just a little misunderstood," he lied. "Misunderstood?" Someone scoffed from the crowd. The voice was laced with anger, a ripple of dissent spreading. "He's a predator, David. Look at him. He offers nothing but danger." The murmurs grew. Some people were ready to listen to the wolf's promises, still clinging to the hope of an escape from their problems. And yet, others rallied behind David, their gazes unwavering, refusing to be swayed. Still, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. "You know," the wolf's voice rang out, smooth and enticing. "I'm not the monster you think I am. I bring solutions that save lives." He gestured toward the town, one hand sweeping over the weary faces. "I can give you what you desire most. Prosperity, safety, everything you fought for, with just one little bargain." David felt a rush of anger. How dare he stand there, weaving promises that could lead to ruin? What kind of safety comes at the cost of our very souls? David called out, his voice steady even as uncertainty swirled in his gut. There was a moment of silence as the wolf considered him, amusement dancing in his eyes. But that's the catch, dear David. Is it our souls or is it just fear? What is truly worth fighting for if it leads to crushing despair? His words hung in the air, thick with temptation. A few neighbors whispered among themselves, weighing the wolf's proposition. David felt a wave of panic swell. What if they were intrigued? What if they were ready to bargain their values for a quick way out? Remember the last time someone offered a golden opportunity? David's voice rose above the noise, steady as a rock in a tumultuous sea. Look where it landed us. Stripped of our homes, our hearts bruised, how many of us lost everything? Could you really risk it again? The crowd fell still, caught in a web of doubt and fear. David had their attention. He could feel it in the air. Lily, he thought, glancing at his daughter, the anchor in his stormy heart. He remembered the day they first spoke about hope, how they vowed to fight for it together. When you take the easy way, you lose what's worth fighting for, his little girl had said. The truth echoed in him now louder than ever. And then in that tense moment inspiration struck. What if we don't go it alone? He exclaimed, his heart amplifying each word as courage surged. What if each of us writes down what we dream for this community? We share it together, not with a wolf but with one another. A sudden spark lit the eyes of a few neighbors, a glimmer of hope igniting in their chests. One after another they began to whisper their dreams. A safe space for their children, a garden that could feed them all, shared resources that would sustain them, not given freely, but built together. The wolf's smile faltered, but he quickly masked it, stepping back, gauging the crowd. You think you can find success without me? You're just prolonging the suffering. No, one elder spoke, his voice rising against the odds. We're choosing to suffer together if it means building something real. As David felt the wave of support crest, he knew they were finally coming together. The power of hope began to replace the unease. Yet as shadows danced at the edges of the town, the wolf's laugh echoed, dark and bitter. You think this is over? His words rolled like distant thunder. I'll be back when you're at your weakest. David stood frozen as dread seeped into his heart, but a newfound resolve burned in his chest. They had taken their first steps together, but the danger lurked close behind. What would happen when the wolf returned? Would they be able to sustain their unity against the darkness that was sure to come? It was only the beginning of a much larger battle, and as the night fell, David realized they needed to be ready. Could they truly hold on to their dreams without making a pact with the wolf? The air crackled with anticipation as the crowd slowly dispersed, the lively chatter fading into thick silence. David felt as though he was in a dream, each face slipping past him like whispered words of doubt. His heart fluttered with elation, buoyed by the support they had mustered against the wolf, yet heavy with shadows of uncertainty. Lily squeezed his hand tighter, her small fingers holding onto him like a life raft. Daddy, are we really going to be okay? Her voice was soft but filled with that innocent worry only a child could bear. David knelt down, meeting her eyes. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to fight for our dreams, and I'll always be here to protect you. But deep in his gut, something gnawed at him, the knowledge that the wolf was not an easy foe. He had seen how quickly hope could turn into despair. As they walked home through the quiet streets, the moon hung low, a watchful guardian. David could feel the remnants of fear in his bones, like a chill that refused to fade. Wisps of the wolf's laughter echoed in his mind, taunting him. I'll be back. That promise loomed. David tried to shake it off, to focus on the flickering lights in the windows of his neighbors' homes, tiny beacons of comfort. But doubt nipped at the edges of his thoughts. How could they fend off the darkness when they had only just begun to come together? Later that night, unable to sleep, David stared at the ceiling. He was wrestling with fears and dreams, the weight of the world pressing down on him. He thought about the individual aspirations shared in the square, how each dream was a piece of the larger tapestry they were slowly starting to weave. Would they really hold together? His thoughts drifted to the wolf's words, slippery and enticing. The community was fragile. What would happen if someone there faltered? As if sensing his unease, Lily stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly. He reached over, brushing her hair from her face, marveling at the peace resting on her features. I'll keep you safe, he promised to the quiet room. His vow echoed only by the faint creaking of the house. Morning arrived with its golden light, and he found himself at the local diner, a gathering point for many. The aroma of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air, but even the warmth of familiar faces couldn't shake his anxiety. They needed more than a few dreams on paper, they needed a plan, a bond that couldn't be broken. Hey David, called out Marge, an elderly woman who had grown up in the town. You look like you've seen a ghost. Everything okay? He forced a smile. Just thinking, that's all. We need to talk about next steps. Marge nodded, the concern in her eyes urging him forward. We always do better when we're united. Remember last month when we pulled together to fix the playground? Her words struck a chord. You're right. He straightened, determination igniting in him. What if we organize a town meeting? Encourage people to share their fears, their dreams, but also make a plan to prepare for what's coming? Marge grinned, a spark of excitement dancing in her eyes. That sounds good. If we're going to resist the wolf, we need something concrete, a solid foundation. David's heart thudded with hope. And not just to defend ourselves. We build something beautiful right where we are. As they gathered the others, sharing ideas and plotting a way forward, David felt the push of connection surge within him, each person eager to contribute to their vision. Yet just as the spirit soared, a sudden gust of wind shattered the window, sending papers flying and knocking over chairs. An ominous feeling washed over the room, and instinctively, David knew that the winds of change were shifting again. As he watched papers swirl around the diner like lost dreams, a thought gripped him. Would it be enough? A distant howl echoed from the woods, chilling the atmosphere. The wolf was out there lurking. With every realization, every whisper of fear, he heard that laughter, dark, menacing. What would happen when the real battle began? Would their newfound unity withstand the storm? They needed more than hope now. They needed to prepare for the coming darkness. The diner was fraught with tension, the laughter that once rang through the air now replaced with hushed whispers and anxious glances. David's heart raced as chairs scraped against the floor, and the shuffle of feet interrupted the stillness. The gust of wind seemed to carry a warning, like the sharp bite of cold before a storm. Everyone, please. David raised his hands, trying to grab their attention. Listen up. We need to stay focused. This meeting is about preparing, about coming together stronger than ever. Marge stepped closer, her brow furrowed. David, what do we do when the wolf shows themselves again? We can't keep running scared. He met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words. We face it together. But we need a plan. David's voice faltered but steadied itself. I'm not asking for bravery alone. I'm asking for unity. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, but others looked unconvinced. Their fear was palpable. He understood that he felt it himself, gnawing at his resolve. The playground was the beginning, he continued, shooting a glance at the children in the corner, blissfully unaware of the thunderstorm gathering in the distance. We did that together. Think of what we could accomplish united against something bigger. A woman with teary eyes spoke up. My husband. He lost his job last month. The wolf has already taken so much from us. What happens if we confront it and still lose? David paused, her pain tangible in the room. What you've lost. It matters. That loss is what drives us to fight. Not just for ourselves but for everyone, our children, our dreams. We need to make choices from our hearts. Lily tugged at his hand. Daddy, I don't want to be scared anymore. Can't we just hide? David knelt beside her. Hiding might feel safe, but it won't bring back what we've lost. We have to fight for our home, Lily. For everyone we love. The seniors in the back began to murmur among themselves, the realization dawning that this wasn't just David's fight. It was theirs too. Slowly, a wave of whispers turned into quiet affirmations. We can find strength together, someone said, and another added, we've faced hard times before. A reluctant nod from Marge signaled a growing consensus. David could feel the atmosphere charge with a flicker of hope. Let us organize. We can create a standing guard, gather supplies to help one another. He suggested that as the discussion opened up, ideas flowed like a river. Folks spoke of raising awareness, organizing community workshops, pooling resources to prepare, creating a network of trust and support. They drew maps of the town, marking safe zones and refuge points, and shared tools and skill sets that could be used in a pinch. But just then a figure outside caught David's attention. It was a tall silhouette, standing under the street lamp's weak glow. He squinted, heart pounding. The wolf. I don't think it's the wolf, Marge whispered, jabbing her finger toward the window. It looks like someone we know. As David peered closer, he realized it was Tom, the town's old mechanic. But his expression was grave, filled with urgency. Was he bringing news or a warning? Before he could turn toward Marge again, David heard Tom call out, David, you need to listen to me. The room hushed, and all eyes fixed on the door as it creaked open. Whatever he had to say would change everything. Hope and fear coiled tightly, as if caught in a tug of war. What could it be? David thought, a sense of dread mixing with an unwilling curiosity. Please, all of you have to hear what I discovered. What revelation could reach them now that might turn the tide against the wolf? David braced himself, knowing instinctively that this moment could lead to their salvation or their undoing. What weight lay behind those words? And would it bring the hope they so desperately needed or unravel the fragile threads of unity they had fought to weave? Tom stepped inside, the heavy door creaking ominously behind him. The cold air rushed in with him, sinking deep into the warm atmosphere of the diner. His eyes darted around, locking onto David's with urgency. "We're running out of time," he said, his voice low, but every word resonated like a gunshot in the stillness. "It's not what you think. The wolf isn't just a monster. Something more." David shot up, instinctively stepping toward Tom. "What do you mean? What do you know?" As Tom brushed snow from his jacket, he leaned closer, drawing the attention of every soul in the room. "You've heard the stories, right? What happens when the wolf shows itself? But what if I told you it's looking for something? Something we have?" Marge crossed her arms, skepticism etched across her face. "What could we possibly have that would interest it?" Tom took a moment, glancing at the children, then back at the adults, as if weighing the consequences of unveiling his thoughts too quickly. "It's a promise and a pact of survival. The wolf isn't merely out for blood. It craves connection. It feeds off our fears but also on our hope, our unity. Why should we trust you?" A voice called out from the crowd, laced with suspicion, drawing nods from several in the back. "Because I've seen it. I've seen the wolf in the shadows." Tom's voice became a whisper, simmering with gravity. "I've made a deal before. It came to me just like it's been haunting you. I thought I could control it, but it will always demand a price. And now it's back looking for more." David's heart thudded, each beat heavy with dread. "What did you give up?" he pressed, desperation tinging his tone. The room, filled with attendants and fearful hearts, felt like it was holding its breath. "A piece of myself," Tom confessed, his voice barely rising above a whisper. "Peace I can never reclaim. It showed me my deepest fears and pains but also revealed how our bonds can be our shield. We can't keep isolating ourselves. If we're going to face this thing, we have to be ready to confront not just the wolf, but what it represents, the fractures among us." The space pulsed with conflicting emotions. David recalled the murmurs of agreement just minutes before. "So what, Tom? We just ask it to leave us alone? Show it our strength?" Tom shook his head. "It's more complicated than that. You can't just bargain with a monster. You have to negotiate for the heart it wants. But you can't do it alone. Everyone here is linked to it in some way. It feels that bond, it seeks to exploit it." Unease bleeded into the atmosphere, and David let the tension rest on his shoulders. "So how do we fight? What's this heart we need?" Tom gripped the edge of the counter, his brow furrowed. "It's our shared grief, our losses. It knows what we've been through and it's coming to take more. But it's also our love, those connections that stitch us together. We need to show the wolf something it can't destroy, our resolve, our unity, and maybe, just maybe, our ability to stand together." David could see the flicker of realization dawning in some faces. Hesitant nodding turned into faces of determination. "Is that enough to push it back?" he asked, half hoping and half fearing the answer. Tom took a deep breath. His next words hung thick in the air. "There's only one way to find out. We confront it. Here and now." A ripple of anticipation swept through the crowd. Could they really face something so monstrous? Could they find the strength they needed? David felt a shift within him, igniting something burning. The path before them was dangerous, but it also gleamed with possibility. We do this together or not at all. We allow ourselves to be vulnerable so we can stand strong. As the room buzzed with energy, something deep stirred inside David, a flicker of hope battling the dark. Are we ready to unite? The diner felt charged. They either forged a path forward or drew back into fear. Together they prepared for the next step, but deep down, David couldn't shake the gnawing thought. What would be the true price of this confrontation with the wolf? Yet as they rallied together, he knew one thing. Their fate was at stake. Just then there came a knock at the door, sharp and demanding. What else awaited them beyond that threshold? David exchanged glances with Marge, her eyes wide with uncertainty but also a growing resolve. Those around him mirrored the mix of emotions swirling in the air: fear, hope, and a touch of determination. "Open it," someone called out, breaking the quiet but thick tension that had settled like a heavy fog in the room. The knock echoed again, filling the diner with a foreboding sense of urgency. With a deep breath, David stepped toward the door, his heart racing. Each step felt monumental. He paused just before twisting the handle, hesitating under the weight of expectation. Would they find an ally or a foe? Would it be the wolf waiting to collect its due? The room behind him silently urged him on. Taking a breath, he swung the door open, cold air rushed in like a wave, and for a fleeting moment, he stood frozen, stunned by the sight. A figure cloaked in shadows loomed before him, its features obscured but its presence unmistakable, powerful, magnetic, threatening. "Are you ready to bargain?" the figure asked, its voice a low growl that sent chills running down David's spine. "Who are you?" he stammered, unease crowding his throat. Instinctively, he glanced back at Tom, seeking some reassurance, some sign from him that this was part of the plan. "I am what seeks you out," the figure replied, stepping forward, glowing eyes piercing through the darkness, reflecting both danger and something almost familiar. "I collect debts and fulfill desires. I know what you want, I know what you fear." "Enough games," David shouted, feeling a surge of courage. "We're not here to entertain whatever twisted desire you have. We want our people back. We want." The figure raised a hand, silencing him with a crackle of power that made the air shimmer. "You think you can win me over with bravado? You need to understand, child, the strength lies within vulnerability. Show me the heart of your community." He glanced around. Everyone stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes fixed on this entity as if it were a living nightmare, but also a chance at salvation. Marge stepped forward, emboldened, and spoke up. "How do we do that? We've been divided for too long. What do you want from us?" "Tell me your stories," the wolf replied, voice softer yet commanding, like a whisper carrying a storm. "The losses, the regrets, the love you've buried. Allow me to see the raw truth of your hearts, and I may just listen." David felt a forceful draft whip around him, sending chills down his arms. Glancing at the group, he saw determination mingling with doubt etched across their faces. What stories could they even bear? "Someone start," David shouted, the urgency propelling him forward. A silence fell, heavy suffocation. But then cautiously someone from the back spoke up, voice shaking. "I lost my brother last winter. The cold swallowed him whole, leaving a barren heart behind." Another voice joined in, fragile yet clear, a young woman with tears threatening to spill over. "I lost my mother to illness. She was my anchor, my light in the darkness." As stories began to weave together, rising like smoke, David felt a palpable shift in the air. Sorrow intertwined with a tender connection, a vulnerability that grew stronger with each confession. They were peeling back layers of pain, revealing what lay beneath a tapestry of love, loss, and yearning. The wolf shifted, shadowy form showing signs of something softer, something reflective. It stepped closer, and suddenly, David felt the warmth of their shared emotions spreading through the room. "More," it urged, the demand insistent but not fully menacing. "Let me feel your bonds of sorrow and love." Encouraged, Marge let out a breath, revealing her own truth. "My son ran away. I thought I was pushing him away with my expectations. But the truth is I was scared of losing him. I never wanted him to be alone." As each person linked their own grief to the collective heart, something remarkable began to happen. David's heart thudded in sync with their confessions, a rhythm rising above fear, stitching the room together. Would their shared stories be enough to quench the wolf's insatiable thirst? Suddenly, the figure's gaze fixed on David, demanding and intense. "And what of you? Can you show me your heart, boy? What will you lay bare to save your loved ones?" David's pulse quickened, the burden of truth crashing over him. Would he lean into the pain he had tried to bury? Everything, he whispered, voice trembling, all of it. "I've lost so much and I'm terrified we'll lose more." The environment was charged, an electric anticipation hovering. They took a desperate step forward into vulnerability, but David wondered, would it be enough? And outside, a low howl echoed in the distance, marking the arrival of something dark and profound. What would happen next, when the wolf's hunger met their intertwined spirits? David closed his eyes, drawing in a breath that felt heavy with desperation. Could he truly expose his heart? He opened his eyes, staring into the glowing orbs of the creature before him. The collective stories had ignited a flicker of courage in him. "I lost my father," he began, his words tumbling out before he fully grasped what he was saying. He was a good man who worked hard and loved this town. But the tremor in his voice gave away the depth of his pain. That love wasn't enough to save him. "I watched as he faded away, each day a little more lost. And after he was gone, I didn't know how to carry that weight. I shut myself off. I thought it was better that way. The air thickened with the weight of his confession, emotions swirling. David felt the eyes of the group fixating on him, compassion mingling with their shared sorrow. The wolf stepped closer, the space between them crackling with energy as if the atmosphere itself was waiting for a resolution. Feel it, the creature whispered, its voice low and resonant. Every loss, every regret. Draw from it. With each breath, David looked around the diner, the faces of his friends and neighbors reflecting his own pain back at him. They were all there, clawing at their sadness, lifting the veil of isolation that had suffocated them for too long. Can I bear it alone? David thought, grappling with the idea of communal grief versus solitary suffering. It wasn't as if he hadn't felt their pain before, but laying it all on the table? That was new. Yet, some part of him shouted that the most powerful stories were often rooted in shared experiences. Marge stepped beside him, her presence grounding him. David, we're in this together. You don't have to carry this burden all by yourself. Her voice was a lifeline, pulling him back from the edge. The murmurs of support washed over him, stirring something within David that longed to break free beneath his fear. Beneath his grief lay hope. I want to show you what our community means, David said, his voice steadying. There's love here that can't be extinguished by darkness. When things got tough, we came together. We fought for each other. We are not defined by our losses but by how we choose to rise from them. The wolf remained silent, its jaw clenched in thought. Your words carry weight, it said finally, a ripple of intrigue evident in its tone. But can you truly emerge from this darkness together? Can a community forged in shared pain turn into one of strength? Marge nodded fervently. Yes, we believe in each other. We always have. The diner erupted with voices, people stepping forward to share their own truths. Each story resonated louder, sparks igniting hope among them. They spoke of loves lost and found, of moments that once felt heavy that now served as a source of strength. David felt himself casting off the pressure of longing, accepting the collective heartbeat throbbing in rhythm with his own. The wolf exhaled a deep breath, a fragment of shadowy mist escaping its lips. Such power, such emotion. Can you sustain this unity when faced with the storms that lie ahead? David faced the being, determination gnawing at him. We will find a way. We must protect each other. The wolf lingered, almost contemplative, then its gaze settled back on him. Very well. In exchange for your raw truths, I will take the essence of your collective spirit. A bargain is struck, but know this. With the strength comes responsibility. The dark has a way of creeping in when you least expect it. And just like that, the bargaining table had been set. With a flick of its hand, the wolf breathed out a dark mist that enveloped the room, swirling around each of them. David could feel it, a tangible energy wrapping around him. What have we done? One voice whispered from the back, panic threading through the air. But before anyone could dwell on that, the power surged, and there was a sudden silence, an ominous hold that gripped them outside. The howling grew louder, more insistent. It was just the beginning. As the shadows closed in, David knew they had to prepare for what might come next. What awaited them when they emerged from this pact? Would their newfound unity hold strong against the darkness? With hearts intertwined in a fragile alliance, they stood, ready to face whatever was to come. And just in that moment, hope flickered like a candle, whispering against the encroaching storm. The night felt restless. Dark clouds rolled overhead as David and the townsfolk processed the bargain they had made. Ricky, a local teacher, turned and whispered, "What if we just invited the darkness in?" Fear danced on the edges of everyone's thoughts. They had forged a bond, but there was still a heaviness in the air, an uncertainty that clung. David glanced around at the familiar faces of the community he had fought so hard to unite. He saw Lilith, the sweet shop owner, clutching her daughter. Tommy, their youngest mechanic, still fresh from high school, looked anxious but resolved. They had taken a stand, and while they had made a bargain, what was it truly worth if they couldn't harness it? Listen, everyone, David began, raising his voice to cut through the tension. We've faced darkness before. We stood up when the flood came, and we can stand together now. He felt the weight of their anticipation, drawing strength from their shared experiences. This isn't just about fear. Let's turn that fear into compassion and resilience. We need to prepare not just for what the wolf could take, but for how we can protect what we have and gather strength. The townsfolk nodded, faces brightening with each assertion. Marge stepped forward, her voice steady. Let us make plans for a community gathering. We will educate ourselves, hold workshops on support and rebuilding, explore ways we can help one another physically and emotionally. If the wolf sees what we become together, maybe it'll think twice before coming back. Great idea. David cheered, encouragement pouring forth. Let us use our experiences to create something even stronger. We're not selling our souls, we're reclaiming them. The energy in the room began to shift. Ideas bubbled up as people spoke about their strengths: cooking, farming, repairing homes. But as they discussed, the howling continued, rising like a crescendo, pressing at the edges of their resolve. David felt it deep in his chest, an urgency to act. He interjected, how about we all take turns on watch? If it's coming for us, we need eyes everywhere. Let us not be caught off guard. The plan took shape and the communal spirit shone brighter than ever. That night, David lay awake, thoughts racing. What would happen when the wolf made its next move? Every memory wrapped around his heart: his father, Lily, the town they were all worth fighting for. He could feel the united spirit growing as dawn broke. A warmth enveloped him, fiery light spilling over the remnants of their town. Together, they gathered supplies, arranging positions to defend their homes. While nerves crackled in the air, laughter erupted as children played, weaving through adults like joyful little sparks. The town felt alive. Later, as the shadows lengthened, a flicker of dark fur appeared at the edge of town. The wolf stood, eyes glowing, watching them as they prepared. David's heart pounded, half with fear, half with determination. Together, he yelled, voice booming, we can do this, show the wolf who we are. The crowd rallied, forming a solid line, a united front cast against the dark. The wolf stepped closer, its grin revealing sharp teeth. You believe a gathering of small hearts can stand in the way of what I offer? This isn't about what you offer anymore. David shouted back, resolve pounding in his chest. This is about what we've built. You can't tear down what's been rebuilt from love, loss, and unity. The wolf raised an eyebrow. And yet you are still standing in fear of me. A wave of anger surged through David, fierce and unyielding. No more fear. We control our fate. The energy in the air thickened, like electricity before a storm. With each word between David and the wolf, the townsfolk stood firm, anchored in their collective strength. They held their stories, their truths in their hearts, mirrored in each other's eyes. Finally, the wolf blinked, a flicker of something like hesitation reflected in its glowing orbs. You would dare face me? There's a cause for this resolve, and I will find it. Not today, Marge declared, stepping closer. Today we fight for hope, for our family, our community. We won't be divided again. And then, almost surprisingly, the wolf chuckled, hoarse but amused. It stepped back, recognizing the united front. So be it. Perhaps your hearts carry more weight than I anticipated. It turned, and with a flicker of shadow, it melted into the night, howls diminishing until only silence remained. The crowd erupted into cheers, arms raised high in celebration. That moment surged through David like the first rays of morning sun. They had stood together. They had faced the darkness and won. Relief washed over him like a cleansing wave. Together. He shouted again, lifting his voice high. We've forged bonds that can withstand any storm. The townsfolk echoed their agreement, and laughter danced amongst them, weaving hope into the fabric of their lives. Lily rushed into his arms, her face aglow. Daddy, we really are going to be okay. Yes, sweetheart, David whispered, wrapping her tightly. Together we'll build a new tomorrow. This town belongs to us. As light spilled into the horizon, painting a vivid sky, David stood amidst his community, his heart full. They had come through the shadows stronger than before, united in a resilience that wouldn't fade. This was only the beginning. Their stories woven into an unbreakable tapestry of hope. Let us keep going, he called, already imagining the future they would create together. And now, folks, it's your turn. If you want to witness more stories of hearts united, subscribe immediately to the channel. Now's the moment to show your support. Hit that like button right this second to feed the algorithm and share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear how this ending made you feel. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.